Now we're going to move on to the house battery portion of this project. We're going to start off with some 2-gauge wire, and we're going to run that from the house battery that we're going to install to the old battery, just to connect the systems. We're going to put an automatic charging switch in the center of that. To start off with, I tried drilling a hole and soldering these cables. I ended up just crimping it using a punch and a hammer. So there's a positive terminal gain block right next to the alternator. I'm just going to splice into that and run a fresh line from that to the new battery. Here we're connecting a 2-gauge ground wire from the frame up to the new battery. These Suburbans are made with space, and some of the diesel versions have a 24-volt system. So all you have to do is take off this corner bracket, and I ordered this battery mount offline. I think it was like 20-30 bucks, something like that. And all you do is mount this up. I had to do a little tweaking with the sheet metal. The battery didn't sit that well. It was just an aftermarket piece. So I bent things around a little bit, but after that, everything's mounted up fine. Now we're going to lay out and mark where we're actually going to mount the automatic switch. The battery cable will go from the original carved battery to this switch, and then through that into the house battery. All this does is automatically charges the house battery when the vehicle is running and the alternator charging, and it keeps you from draining the main battery when you are sitting there parked. Okay, so this also has an emergency button to try to connect the systems, which I find that very helpful. I'll try to link this one. After we have the system wired up, we're just going to take some zip ties, try to clean up the routing of the wiring, make sure it doesn't flop around, get involved with anything. Starting on the inside of the vehicle, we're going to go ahead and mount a gang block for our negative terminals. This way we can just mount this directly to the sheet metal and we have a nice ground for all of our components. I got this at Lowe's and just cleaned off a little paint, stuck it in there. I think I put dielectric grease on the inside of it just to make sure it gets a good contact. And then we're going to take a fuse box, lay it out to where we want to get that. We'll mount that. And I put some RTV silicone on the back side of that just to help with vibration and in case the screws come loose. This is a 4-wheel drive vehicle. So now we're going to go ahead and go from the battery or house battery to the back to tighten the system, we're going to put in a 50 amp circuit breaker, just in case everything gets a ground or something like that. It'll pop this breaker rather than shorten something out.
Absolutely necessary. But it's absolutely necessary.
Once we get the breaker put in place, we're going to zip tie everything, make it nice to look clean, and then the fun part of actually routing the wires. So I tried a few different locations, wanted to make sure that four-wheel driving this doesn't bounce around, didn't want too many chances of it fraying and cutting the cable itself. Okay, so once we have the 6-gauge cable connected that came from the battery to the fuse box, we're going to go through and just kind of wire in all the different components of the system. It looks pretty trashy right now. I do go back and try to just clean up the wiring. I'm just kind of trying to get everything laid out where it's going to go and make sure everything's functional to start with.